My goal today is to review scoring and colors in QuickScore. I've already logged in and have landed at my home page. In the New Alerts section, I immediately see the impact of colors within the product. The first alert shown is highlighting a red value for the total gross profit measure for the month of May. If I click on it to investigate, I get down to a detailed view where I can see coloring being displayed in a number of areas. In the actual and threshold values section, I see a red colored circle and normalized score for the month of May. In the speedometer in the top left, I see it is in the red. Right above that, I see a red colored rectangle illustrating that the actual value of 100,000 is down 150,000 from the prior month. This must mean if I toggle back to April in the top right, the actual should be 250,000. And it is, so I'll return to May. In the chart in the top right, I see a red colored circle for May. I can also see that May is the only month within the entire last year that is operating in the red. Every other month is in yellow or green. If I look at the Measures tab in the top left, I see there is a red alert because the month's actual is in the red. If I toggle back to April, the alert goes away. I'll toggle back to May and click on the Measures tab. I see there are color indicators in the top left corner of every month. If I hover over the measure name or an individual number, the entire row is highlighted in that color, making it stand out even more. I'll then return to the Overview tab. In the secondary navigation pane on the left, I see colors appearing throughout the scorecard hierarchy. Without having to click on a different item, I can see that the top level is in yellow for the month, while the financial perspective is in red. I can see that the increased revenue objective is in yellow, and if I expand it, I can see why. One of its measures is in green, one of its measures is in yellow, and one is in red. I'll collapse that objective again and focus in on total gross profit. Because that measure is active on screen, I'm seeing a red color visual in two places, to the left of the measure name and to the right. If I select a different measure, like product revenue under increased revenue, I see that measure now has two colors showing, this time in green, while the red to the left of total gross profit has turned gray since it is no longer active on screen. Next, I'd like to return to the home page by clicking on that link in the top left and see the impact of coloring in other areas of the product. If I click on My Measures under Your Responsibilities, I'll see just for the measures I am owner for, a colorized view of performance for May 2019 on the left. At the top, there are green, yellow, red, and gray filters that allow me to focus in on a particular area. If I click on red, I'll see just those measures. If I click again, I'll return to all measures. Next, I'll return to the welcome page by clicking on that link. And this time select Measure Updates, just to see the measures I am responsible for updating. If my measures have been updated, in the top left of the period column, I can see a color indicator showing my performance for that month. If I hover over the measure name or the period, the coloring expands to the entire cell. I'll click on Welcome once again, and this time click on My Tasks. Just like with measures, I have color indicators for each task on the left. And at the top, I have colored filters where I can focus in on maybe just my red tasks by clicking on it, and then clicking again to show all tasks. I'll go back to the welcome page, and now take a look at the impact of coloring in our presentation section. Strategy maps, dashboards, charts and reports, and briefings. To do this all at one time, up at the top, I'll switch to Mobile World by clicking on Briefings, clicking on Mobile World, and then choosing Select. I'll see an existing briefing named Monthly Staff Meeting, which contains a collection of the various objects that we see on the left. In this example, we're looking at a dashboard. On the first page of the briefing is the Key Measure History dashboard. Thanks to coloring, I can quickly see in the speedometers that 3 of the measures are in yellow for the month, with increased lead generation in green. If I focus on the top 3 charts, I can quickly surmise that for the past 2 years, no month was in the red. With the bottom chart's different style, it's a lot harder to summarize that. All I can tell is that improved customer retention is trending downward. If I skip to page 4 of the briefing, by selecting the drop-down arrow and then selecting that page, you can see the impact of coloring very quickly within the Mobile World strategy map. I can see that for my 12 objectives, 5 are performing well, 5 are doing okay, and 2 are performing poorly. I can also see colorized trend arrows to the prior period, helping me pinpoint things further. Of the 2 red objectives, improved contract management is actually the bigger concern since it is trending down from April, while improved customer retention is working its way up. If I skip to page 6 of the briefing, I can see the color impact in the sales report. For a various list of sales measures, in the top left I can see a color indicator of performance for each month. If I hover over the measure name or any one of the values, I'll see that color take over the entire cell. Thanks to color, I've already got a handle on which one of the measures I need to focus on. Book sales revenue has 6 months that are of concern, including the most recent 3 months, March through May of 2019. Okay, with that, I'd like to take a step back and discuss the concept of normalized scoring in QuickScore. To help illustrate this, I'm going to select scorecards, and then from the drop-down arrow at the top, I'm going to select Demo. I'm going to expand examples and scoring types, and then select the measure goal red flag there. Measures and their associated normalized score are the foundation of how performance is tracked and presented. QuickScore assigns a normalized score between 0 and 10 based on a measure's actual value, thresholds, and scoring type. QuickScore provides 11 different scoring types, allowing for many options for associating actual performance with normalized scores. I'll select Edit, and if I select scoring type and scroll down and then up, I can see all of the various options. I'll leave that as is, and I'll select Done. I've put together an example of each one of those scoring types, and I'll just highlight some of the key differences. I'll start with the most popular one, goal and red flag. If I set the red flag value to 500 and have an actual of 500, I know that will be the point it turns red and have a score of 3.33. Conversely, if I have a goal of 800 and have an actual of 800, I'll change this by clicking Update and change it to that value and select Save. I know that's going to be the point it turns green and have a normalized score of 6.67. To determine the points at which 0 and 10 are hit, QuickScore calculates the difference between the red flag and goal, which in this case is 300, 800 minus 500. It then subtracts or adds that value to determine the endpoints. For instance, if I have an actual of 200, which is 300 less than the red flag, that's going to be the point it hits 0. Conversely, if I have an actual of 1100, that's going to be the point it hits 10, effectively the best value. Okay, moving on to 3-color scoring. This option provides more control over defining the best and worst values. Instead of having best and worst auto-assigned, as it just was, I have the ability to set whatever I want for them. In this case, maybe 0 and 1500. For example, if I had an actual of 200, whereas the score was 0 in the goal red flag model, it now has a score of 1.33. Only at an actual of 0 will I have a score of 0. Moving on to goal only. This option requires only that a goal value be set and a determination if higher values are better. And to show that, I'll click Edit. If that is set to yes and I'm at the goal or above, I'll be in the green with a score of 10. And I'll click Done here. For example, if I have a goal of 800 with an actual of 800, I'm in green and at 10. If I change the value to maybe 795, I'll see that I'm in red with a normalized score of 0. Moving on to yes/no scoring. This option is very similar to goal only, but does not require a goal. I also need to make the determination if yes is good or not. And I'll click Edit just to show where that is. And then click Done. If it's set to yes, and the actual for the month is no, I'll be in the red and have a score of 0. If the actual is yes, I'll be in green with a score of 10. Moving on to 2-color scoring. This option allows for the setting of best and worst values along with the goal. There is no red flag. Anything at or above the goal is green, while anything below the goal is red. There is no yellow. Moving on to 4-color blue, this option requires 5 threshold points: worst, red, goal, reach out, and best. A value at each of the threshold points will generate scores of 0, 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10, respectively. For example, an actual of 1200 that equals the reach out will be in blue with a score of 7.5. Moving on to 4-color orange, this option is very similar to 4-color blue, except the reach out point is replaced with the warning point. For example, an actual that is equal to warning is an orange with a score of 5. Moving on to 4-color scored middle, this option requires 3 thresholds: a red flag, yellow flag, and green flag. Colors range from red to yellow to light green to dark green. Moving on to 2-color stabilize, this option requires 5 thresholds: low worst, low target, best, high target, and high worst. In this model, scores go from red to green and then back to red. Next is 3-color stabilize. This option requires 7 thresholds: low worst, low red flag, low target, best, high target, high red flag, and high worst. Low red flag and high red flag are 2 additional items required here. In this model, scores go from red to yellow to green, and then back to yellow and red. Last but not least is the unscored option. This option requires no thresholds and will have no impact on scoring whatsoever. Its purpose is simply for tracking purposes. For instance, a total revenue measure that allows the summing of all the revenue measures and have that visible in one location. Okay, the last item I'd like to review is how scores are rolled up a scorecard hierarchy. Once measures have been scored, parent objects like objectives and perspectives get their score via a weighted average of the scores of the objects directly beneath them. For example, I'll select Normalized Scoring here. By default, QuickScore assigns an equal weight to each measure. If I had just these 2 measures and the score for total gross profit was 0 and the score for employee satisfaction was 10, it sums those 2 up, divides by 2, and produces a score of 5 in yellow for the parent. However, the weight can be customized. To show that, I'll click on Total Gross Profit and then select Edit in the bottom. I'll then click on Weight and maybe change that to 3 to make it 3 times more of an impact than employee satisfaction, and then click Save. I'll then click Done, and I'll click Refresh to have that scoring propagate. If I now click on the parent, I'll see that, unlike before, that is also in red, just like total gross profit, and its normalized score has dropped from 5 down to 2.5. Lastly, the treatment of nulls also plays a big impact on the color. For instance, if I expand null example, I'll see that the total gross profit is yellow and employee satisfaction is gray because an actual has yet to be provided. Although each measure was assigned an equal weight of 50, if only one has an actual, the null measure will display a weight of 0. I'm also provided a tooltip explaining why. If I go back to April, when both measures had an actual value, I'll see the equal weight of 50. I'll now switch back to May. In settings down in the bottom left, if I switch an option within Application Administration called Ignore Gray Scorecard Items for Color Rollup to No, and then click Save, return back to Scorecards and click Refresh, I'll see that the parent objective has switched from yellow to gray, and will remain that way until all the measures it contains have been populated.